Welcome everyone to our Team Freedom Reigns call. Our Monday night leadership call for this team is very powerful. I'm honored to be standing in for the Nettles while they are on a very important anniversary cruise and vacation, celebrating their remarkable and extraordinary relationship. And their leadership has made a huge difference for me. I've been in the business 5 years. I'm an executive consultant. I live in the Philadelphia area, about an hour outside of Philly. And I was introduced to the business about 5.5 years ago. I started looking, and I was a busy Manhattan dweller. I was living in Harlem. I was running 3 companies. I had a coaching business. I had a training company where I worked with teams and with groups of people. And I also had an events business. And I was doing all kinds of breakthrough work with entrepreneurs using brain science and quantum physics. And I was feeling so spiritually fed by the difference I was making. It's just that I was burned out. I was working 80 hours a week. I was leaving the house at about 7 or 7:30 in the morning to catch a train, do all my meetings throughout Manhattan. And because I was in the networking and coaching people on how to tap into their networks, I was at events all the time. And then I'd get home around 9 or 10 at night. So when Sarah Smith shared this with me, she was one of my coaching clients. I was like, well, where do you think I have any time? And my only downtime was in between appointments, and I was on a subway where there's no cell signal. So I created a trick. Once I said yes to this, and by the way, the Nettles were a big part of what my due diligence process was. I jumped on a plane and flew to the headquarters and wanted to meet the C-suite. I'd been in network marketing years and years ago. I said, I'm never doing that again unless I find a publicly traded company with a breakthrough, and they're like FedEx instead of DHL. I want to be part of the pioneering move on something new, not the copycat, which is what DHL did, copying the FedEx idea. I mean, copycats are fine. I don't have anything against it. I just didn't want to be part of a copycat in network marketing. So I jumped on a plane to evaluate this at the boardroom level, and the Nettles were there. And it was a huge part of my being able to understand the support that I'd have, because in my previous experience in network marketing, the support was me into my team. I never had much of an available upline because they were usually the top earners and they were just not available. And here I am, so grateful that I have extraordinary support and building this beautiful team of people that just moved me and touched me to my core. So it's with great pleasure that I'm here to facilitate and host today's call. And I love this question: is it time for your business to evolve? And it actually is an invitation for me. Every time I look at this business, it's inviting me to reinvent myself. I am not the same person I was not only 5 years ago, but who I was just over a year ago. I get kind of choked up when I think about the beautiful way this business has challenged me to examine my limiting beliefs. And I didn't even know they were limiting, because that's the irony about blind spots, is we don't see them. But this business has a way of revealing my blind spots to me so that I can actually heal that, grow through it, and evolve who I am. So I'm grateful for who this business has allowed me to become, at the same time that I'm building an asset to create freedom for myself. It's probably the best things that ever happened to me, and I almost missed it because I was so busy and I was really making it. It's just that I was running really fast on that hamster wheel. I almost missed what was being presented. So I'm just going to be sharing some of the things that are coming up to make sure they're on our calendars and on our radar. So just keep in mind, December, this is where we are. We're coming into just past halfway through December, the power of the 3-in-1 and the bonuses that are available. So just make sure you've got that on your radar, the power of the fast track, and having a chance to do the reset if you've been here a while. So definitely reach out to your support mentorship and create a game plan around that. You might already be in the middle of a 90-day game plan. I find that a game plan is what I like to think of as a term I learned from being in the coaching space as a performance coach and success coach, is the idea of setting a goal and then creating a structure for fulfillment. That's the beauty of the fast track. It's a structure to support people coming out of the gate when they're new, or the idea that they've reset it so we can create it as a game. So I really love that. And keep in mind the enroll and earn. Very exciting that these different bonuses are available. So check your Evo and you can learn more there. It's a very exciting way to wrap up the new year. No pun intended about the wrapping up, like presents wrapping. And keep in mind, Wednesdays, that's the new consultant webinar. It's at 7 o'clock Mountain, at 7 p.m. Mountain time. And this is where we invite new consultants to come into this orientation to really support them in how to use the back office, what's the fast track, who the support team is for them. It's a really lovely way to have people kind of come into the fold. And there's the Zoom information if you want to take a camera and snap it, or press pause if you're watching the replay. And then on Tuesdays, as we know, the Momentum Live Tuesdays at 3 p.m. Mountain Time. So coming up Tuesday, I believe, yes, the 19th. The topic, Pitch Perfect, Unlocking Your Product Selling Potential. Of course, when I first looked at that, I thought, well, the movie Pitch Perfect was the musical Pitch. And what's fun about the idea of sharing our business is it's not so much a sales pitch, as if it's like how to have a way of phrasing things that allows us to unlock our potential. So think of it that way, like, oh, our sales pitch, but having it be a perfect way to phrase, paint the picture, put it in a way that makes it understandable and unlocks our potential. And really the key is, how do we accelerate ourselves and those on our team reaching diamond seller? I'm very, very excited about the different ways to achieve success here. I've been here 5 years, so I've found leadership development was really my attraction, but I love how people on my team, I've got someone on my team that before the Evolve compensation plan came along, she was really good at the sales pitch, being a licensed healthcare professional, a lot of clients that trust her. She said, I'm not really ready to build a team yet. I just want to really see these products get out there and make a difference for people. Now, that's a different way than I built. Right? I wanted to build a team because I wanted to take it to the world. I was a former elite athlete. I thought every elite athlete needs to see this, and I can't do that alone. So that was really my drive, to build a team so that more and more athletes could ripple and have 1 million athletes hearing about that. It was just part of my game. There you go, a game. But this is the woman who said to me, okay, at some point I'm going to want to build a team. Right now, I want to make sure that the science of genetic activation is on the radar of the people who are my clients. And I'll tell you, it's really exciting to see what happened to her. And that was all in last year. And up until Evolve, had about 30 customers on subscription, 30 to 40 at any given time, about 30 would be ordering. And these are either one person on the collagen and the tri-synergizer, or a couple both on the tri-synergizer, or a couple both taking the collagen. So what we found is that right around 200 points times 30 people, that's 6,000 points in her customer basket every month. Well, prior to the Evolve compensation plan, we were making 2% on our customers. So she was making a whopping $120 every month on those renewable subscriber orders. The day we went into the Evolve compensation plan, March 1st of 2023, her check went from $120 every month on those customers to $1,800 every month, 30% on 6,000 points in customers. So I love this conversation that we're learning how to make this science understandable, have it be something we can introduce to people who are looking for ways to make a goal with their health, maybe hack, whether they're training for a marathon or they're trying to drop some weight, and whatever is going on. This is going to be a really powerful conversation with Ray and Sam Allen. Very, very exciting. So check your email for your Monday email. It usually goes out around 1-ish p.m. Mountain Time. So keep a look in your email for that. Now, be sure to register for the virtual global kickoff. I'm basically telling my colleagues on my team, and then as I start inviting people, this is like basically a global conference that we could have picked some city in the middle of everything, say St. Louis, fly in everybody from all over the place. Instead, we're going to be having it virtually as a simulcast, so that I can have a clump of of leaders meeting in Philadelphia or Boston or Denver or wherever in the world. And I tell you, that is the smartest thing. And so when I invite somebody, and I mean a guest, when I invite one of my guests that I'm inviting are people who are leaning in some way. Maybe they've had a look at the ABC, they've attended a LifeVantage overview, whether online or got to see one of the replays or a live event. And they're like, wow, what's this team like? Well, I am so excited that we're going to be hosting a watch party for my team in Philly. My group in New York is going to be hosting one. And so I invite you to get a few friends together. And then if you register your watch party, you get to be part of a pre-event Zoom that's really kind of coaching us how to be hosts extraordinaire, but also how cool to be part of that community. So very special. Be sure you schedule that. And what I'm recommending, and this was on a call we had, was an executive consultant call, and we had Brandon Cunningham, who's a presidential, was on that call, just giving us some ideas of how to plan for this. And he shared what he's doing for his watch party. So I'm going to talk in Eastern time zone because that's where I am. So the broadcast is going to be 12 to 2 Eastern. Okay, so what is that? 10 to 2 Mountain time. I'm planning on 10 to 2:30 p.m. Mountain. That's just me. I create a little bit of an extension. Okay, so I'm thinking, all right, those 2.5 hours in Eastern time. All right, it's going to be 12 to 2:30. Mountain is 10 a.m. to 12:30 Mountain time. So let's just say that's the simulcast portion of this event. Then we're having people get together a couple hours early. We're going to get together at 10 a.m. Eastern, just to give you a feel for what I learned from Brandon Cunningham. Get together 10 a.m. That'll be the LifeVantage overview, because it helps those who've been looking at maybe little pieces of the puzzle. Everyone gets on the same page. A LifeVantage overview from 10 a.m. Eastern until about 11. Then we'll probably have kind of a panel of some fun product impact stories, maybe a couple people why LifeVantage based on their business background or their professional expertise, or just a variety of the different kinds of experiences that people come to. No one has to have a special kind of license or background. And then that allows us to have everything set up right, rolling into the 12 o'clock launch of the simulcast. And that's just the word I'm using, so it reminds everybody they're part of a global conversation. So that's just some language I use, because then it's like it's live, it's coming in, it's the conference beaming in. And then it wraps up at 2:30 p.m. Eastern. We're going to have about a half hour more of just Q&A and milling around. And if it ends early, like 2 o'clock Eastern, when the broadcast ends, people can leave early if they want. So I'm creating this conversation here in Philadelphia. 9:30 a.m. is the meet and greet. 10 o'clock a.m. Eastern is the LifeVantage overview. So 10 to 3. Play with this, get with your mentors, check it with your upline support, and get some guidance on what would be the best way to plan it, and then start asking people to save the date. And that's the beauty of what's happening. And the fact that we get to hear from Tyler Daniels and Carrie Dickey as part of the simulcast, this is huge. They're going to also, this is key, I want the people who are evaluating this to meet the CEO. I want them to meet Steve Fife. I want them to get a sense of the executive team and the presidential consultants here. Otherwise, I'd say that we'd have to be jumping on a plane and flying out to Salt Lake City. Just outside. I mean, that's how I have inspired people to make the time. My massage therapist was like, "Oh, that sounds really special." I said, "Yeah, I really want you to get a feel for the kind of integrity and the vision behind this company that I've partnered with." And she's evaluating whether it's for her. And we were together, and she's like, "Okay, I'm putting it in my calendar." There it is, January 13th. It's Saturday, January 13th. So be sure to put it on your schedule. 10 a.m. Mountain time to roughly 12:30 p.m. Mountain time is the window of the broadcast simulcast. So you can keep that in your calendar and plan it. Also, coming up to mark our calendars, Nashville. This is our Momentum Academy. Think of this as a national conference. Distinct from the global conference, which brought in people from all over the planet. This is for the U.S. So our Momentum Academy is in Nashville. It's going to be at the Gaylord Opryland Resort and Convention Center. It is stunning, and it's just an extraordinary place. I was there a few years back. It was just amazing. And be sure to lock in your tickets so that the price doesn't go up. So I did that already, and it's very exciting to be saving the date. It's the 14th through the 16th of March. And as I look to see the days of the week, the 14th is a Thursday. So it's Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So to have that arrive, sometime in the morning or even the night before Wednesday. So that's a little bit of what to have on your calendar. What I'd love to do is invite a couple people to share a product impact story, because I want to do a little coaching piece or a training piece on something that I've had fun as the try on this. The story is the answer. Not always, but imagine whatever question someone asks. I know a story that will answer it. The story is another way of directing it away from me. So I'm not the expert that memorizes anything. But they say to me, oh my goodness, blah, blah, blah. Will it help my knee? I could say, I actually don't know if it would help your knee, but let me give you an example of what it's done for my friend's foot. And then I can tell my friend Jeff Goodman's story. So the reason I want to have some stories is I want to show you how I would use that story to address someone's question. And I already, here's the joke is, you want to get so good at telling stories that I can act like Chris Smith. Many of you know Sarah Smith and Chris Smith. They're actually my enrollers. I can tell Chris Smith's leg injury story better than he can. And I have people that can tell my story better than I tell my own story, because I get caught up on all the details in the jungle. And so when Chris was telling me his story 5 years ago, his story was the reason I didn't even need a product experience to launch my business. So I'll tell you Chris Smith's story as you guys start to think of some of your favorite stories. So here's when someone says to me like, well, I don't know, Cynthia, don't I need to try this product? Here's a question. This is how I answer this particular question. Hey, Cyn, don't I need to try this product for a few months and I really got to try it before I sell it? I go, well, that actually is a really valid way. Some people, I'd say about half the people on our team, that's how they started. They became a customer and they vetted it out and they experienced it and they were ready to go after, whatever time they needed to see the product. And then they became a consultant. The other half, like me, I was one of the people in the other half where I read a couple of the studies, kind of a speed reader that I am. And then I heard one story that so moved me that I knew everyone needed to know about it. And I didn't even care if I ever had an experience. And they were like, what? Well, let me tell you the story that I heard. And it was true. I was evaluating this business. Sarah said, oh, because Sarah was my client, my coaching client. So I hadn't met Chris yet. And while I was in the due diligence phase, and she's like, oh, talk to Chris and hear his story. And then, so this is what I tell my friends when they're trying to figure out, don't I need to try it first? I said, well, I heard this story and I was so moved. Here's what his story is. So he, in his early 30s, was in the ski industry, patrol. He was famous for being able to find anybody in a blizzard. Skiing was sort of this passion, and he had this kind of his purpose and delivered a need in the world and set off, preemptive avalanches. So he's in avalanche control, having the time of his life doing what he loved, living in mountains in a log cabin that overlooked, the views that anyone would pay millions of dollars to live on these views, and loving it. And he was skiing. And I'm an athlete, but it wasn't skiing. So I don't know the name. There's a certain kind of thing where when you're skiing, whoosh, and your foot goes in a hole. There's a certain name for that thing, and it snaps. And he had a tib-fib fracture, 2 plates, 14 screws. His first year, this is around age 32, at the premier height of fitness. In that first year, doctors thought 3 different times they were going to have to amputate. He was able to hold on to his foot and didn't have to, but there were 3 big scares where they thought that was going to be the thing that was going to happen. He was on crutches for a year and walked with a cane for the next 3 years. And then for the next 8-9 years, never went a day without pain. He could not, because of the location of the hardware, could not get his foot into a ski boot. And for the next 9 years, did not ski. He literally was never going to ski again. Fast forward, he ends up with how shall I say this? A health crisis. Again, depending on whether I'm talking one-on-one or in a group setting, how much detail I go in with a health crisis. But he was bedridden with vertigo. He'd gone into the construction business because he was doing that was what he did in the summer. when he wasn't in the mountains during the winter. So he went back to what he knew to do as a summer job and started his own construction company, had an outfit of a number of guys working for him, and gets this health scare. They were testing him for everything and didn't know what he had. And he had vertigo. He was lying in bed and he could not work on a job site. So there he is, unable to work. And that is a crisis when your income depends on your hands being in the mix. But what's interesting about this is that health scare led them to a nurse practitioner who was helping them, manage things on one level. And she said, my daughter's bringing LifeVantage and Protandim. I don't think she said LifeVantage. She said, bringing Protandim to the state of Maine. I checked out the science. It's pretty amazing. And that's what had Chris start taking Protandim, because he found out, I want cellular health. This crisis is I'm rebuilding myself, but I want to restore myself to cellular health. He started taking the product. Absolute, vitality comes back. He's back in the ladder, swinging the hammers. He felt like a new person, back on the job, was relieved. It just happened, though, one day, coming home on the truck, which is, 45-minute drive at the end of the day. He says, as long as I was moving around on the job site, my leg didn't hurt. But it was always at the end of the day, coming out of the truck, walking up to the front door, that long stretch from truck to door was the white knuckle going up the railing in pain. And that was 9 years of that. He comes in the door, or he starts walking to the front door, halfway up to the door. He's like, I should be in extreme pain right now. Why am I not feeling any pain? In fact, did I have pain yesterday? And that's when he knew something was up. So 90 days on Protandim, this thing happens to his leg. He puts it to the test because he's a little bit of a cynic, and he goes, let me check about these placebo people. Checks in, finds out the longest ever placebo effect was 45 days. He's like, I'm giving this thing another 45 days just to make sure I'm not mentally, making something up. 45 days later, not only had the pain in his leg not returned, that was the end of that. So I started telling my friends, I heard this story, but my favorite part of the story is that he kept taking Protandim, obviously, he's like, hey, I'm going to take it every day. A year and a half in, he's hiking. Because I know his story, and I use his story to help people understand everything from different benefits to ongoing accumulated benefit. Because he's like, you have to take this every day. So then I say, let me give you the benefit, the side of the story that's called accumulated benefit. Took it every day. Fast forward a year and a half, he started to do more mobility. He's hiking, not like rock climbing, but he's out in the woods hiking with his wife, Sarah. And they get separated, not by much, but she can't see him, and she hears, babe, get over here. She trucks over there and runs up to him. He's sitting on a log or a rock. And he looks at her and he goes, I think I've dislodged my hardware. I think I pushed it too far. She's a medical massage therapist. She already knew every centimeter of his leg from all the years they were together at that time, I think 5 or 7 years. She's feeling it, and she's like, oh my gosh. And there's this, it's floating in his ankle. They rush him over to the clinic where they take an x-ray, and the doctor goes, nope, your hardware is completely intact. What's floating in your body, it's like it's discharging scar tissue, floating around. Over the next year, the mobility restores. He's back in a ski boot. So the accumulative effect of taking Protandim put him into that situation. That story is what I launched my business on. I said, this is an elite athlete who lost his ability to perform in his sport. He had to give up the sport. And I thought, how many athletes stop playing tennis, have to stop playing golf, whether they're a professional or they just love golf and they're 60 and they don't want to hang up their clubs. I got so moved by what that story meant that I tell people, I go, that's why I'm taking this to the world. And I was like, okay, so the answer, because they're like, well, what'd you feel? I said, I don't feel anything when I eat blueberries. So I figured I wasn't going to feel anything when I took this. It was for that story that I wanted to take this to the world. And my friends go, oh, okay, maybe I'll try it. So still, they might still need to be the one that tries it before they join my team. But I'm just letting you know that that's a story that I use to answer, does it have accumulated effects? You have to keep taking it. I'll use that story to answer, so well, I should, did you feel anything? And I didn't wait to feel something that I'm a visionary. So I kind of put pieces together and get inspired, whether I feel anything or not. And then another thing that I love about that story is it also is how I tell people part of my vision is to make a difference with elite athletes or people who aren't elite athletes that want the kind of stamina and the, to have a sense of being restored to a higher order of conditioning. And that's another reason why. So that's just an example of how one story can answer a question. I'll give you guys another question that will get asked. And that is, and by the way, Teresa, since I can see you and I were chatting, how long does this call usually go?
Usually about 30 minutes.
Good, because this will be my last story. Okay, perfect. Instead of you guys telling me stories, I'm going to wrap with this. If someone says, oh my gosh, I don't have time. The people on my team have learned my story and so I'm going to pretend I'm telling my story, but not me. So someone on my team could say, oh my gosh, I totally get what you're saying. It's like that feel, found. You can either say, oh my God, I totally know how you feel. I felt the same way, wondering where in my crazy schedule would I find any time. Here's a fun story that like can help paint the picture of like really how I got my head. My business partner, Cynthia, her story really helped me understand the way this project it's like a nooks and crannies kind of situation. Let me tell you her story. So, and you guys heard me say at the beginning, but here's how someone on my team might tell my story. You guys could tell the story. One of my business partners on the team that we're working together, because I'm working with you guys, I'm on your team, we're on the same team, so you can use me as one of your business partners. She, living in Manhattan, was running she had a training company, a coaching business, and an events planning business, putting on these big events throughout Manhattan, working about 75 hours a week. And then between her meetings, she lived on the subway and there's no cell signal there. She's like, where am I going to get this time? And here's what she did. She was so inspired by the impact, having been an elite athlete. She was like, just if this only reached the people who were either just passionate athletes, weekend warriors who wanted to extend their love of that game. She decided to weave this in. And here's what she did. Because she couldn't make any phone calls on the subway. It's completely dark down there with cell signal. She would get off one stop. I'm pretending I'm talking about me, but with a she, because I'm pretending I'm one of my team members. She would get off one stop early. Whenever she was on her way to a meeting, she would come up above ground, one stop on the subway early, which would add a 10-minute walk to her next appointment. And in those 10 minutes, she'd make 2 phone calls. She built her entire business on these 10-minute chunks 3 or 4 times through the day. If she made 2 phone calls 3 or 4 times, she'd get in anywhere from 6 to 8 phone calls. And then she'd set up hey, I'll be home at 9:30 tonight. And they were like, oh, I'll be home too. And she set up a little 15-minute, watch the ABC, take about 5 or 10 minutes to tell a little bit about the story, what she wanted to tell. She wanted to take this, build a team to take this global. And she built her entire business in 6 to 8, maybe 10 hours a week in these nooks and crannies by creating an opportunity to make 2 calls in these 10 minutes. And in a year and a half doing this part-time without affecting her other 3 businesses, she was able to help her team rippled out and helped open business in over 10 countries. So that's just an example how someone who had what looked like no time created time. And here's what Cynthia said, and I'll wrap with this. I know I'm super busy and I have 75 hours a week I'm working. But if someone asked me to be on the board of a nonprofit that moved me to my core, and it's about an 8-hour a week commitment to be on that board, I would have found the time. And that's when it hit me. That's what Cynthia said. That's when it hit me. I'm just taking that same 8 hours a week that I put on the board of building the vision of some nonprofit to be part of sort of an inner circle team launching the vision and sharing the vision of this initiative to make a difference in the world. So it's with that I thank you for joining us. I'll make sure the replay is available. Have an amazing rest of this year. We'll be seeing each other in the new year before we know it. And thank you again, everyone, and make it a really beautiful rest of your holiday season.